Hi, everybody. So we are going to go over podium materials. How do we make sort of reflective surfaces, blurry reflective surfaces, light emitting surfaces, and materials in podium? I've already actually made this lecture, but I'm redoing it because I think it could be shorter. A lot of the time in this video might be rendering, but hopefully I can sort of mitigate that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go and just double check my settings here. So I haven't changed anything from when we manipulated these last. So my presets set to exterior, fine. I'm going to render a smaller scene, 640 by 480, because I don't want to take too much time when I'm rendering, when I'm doing this sort of trial and error and getting my material set. My environment I have set to Podium Physical Sky 1, and I have the intensity exposure uh, turned down to like 5 each. Okay. So that should be okay. Everything should work for that. I don't see that taking up too much time, at least in our trial and error. So I'm just going to hit save. I'm also going to hit update on my scene up here. I've noticed sometimes when I switch between scenes, the settings change. So I think that might be why, although that's not what I would have figured, but I think that might be why. So here we are in scene one. I have my sun on, which means I have that direct light source on in Podium, if you recall from our previous lectures. And now I want to sort of start applying material to this. Obviously, there is material on there, but I want to have some qualities applied to those materials, such as reflection. So let's start manipulating some of them. Let's start with this wood here. And you'll notice in here, I have already changed everything. So I'll just walk you through it. The material settings in here is actually quite simple compared to some other programs. So I'm going to go just kind of zoom into this wood texture, and I'm going to go to this guy, this little fan deck in the Podium toolbar. So if you remember last time, the first button really is for the render, right? Ignore the second one. Then you have your materials and then your settings. So we really went in depth on settings, and now we're going to go in depth on material properties. Okay, so here's our material properties. First thing I'm going to do, click the eyedropper and click the material that I'm looking to manipulate. Okay, first things first, set this material type here to default. I'm just going to run down everything here. Set it to default. The only other option there is metallic. If your material that you're looking at is a brass or a gold, like on a door handle, or it's some sort of copper or metal that really needs a metallic look, that's when you would want to turn that on. All that does is make metal look more like metal. It reflects it and keeps the base color of, say, copper, which is what, like a orangey reddish color, or gold, like a yellowy color, come through, and it won't, say, reflect the environment too much. Or it'll still keep the same reflection intensity, but it'll bring that base material through. Confusing, I know, but just remember that if it's metal, and I'm talking like shiny metal, then use that. If this column here is metal, I'm not going to use it for that. Okay. I'm just going to keep it at default. Well, you could and see what happens. So, okay, let's talk about these first three settings here. So these sliders should, and these numbers should always add up to 100%. You'll find that sometimes they don't, like they're kind of finicky. See, I'm moving this around. 76, what, why isn't it add up to 100, or like give me some sort of warning that this should be 100? It's a little strange. More often than not, this will be the setting right when you start up the materials. It's just saying whatever texture map you have in there, I'm doing that 100%. There's no reflection and I can't see through it at all, and there's no transparency. Let's say I want a little reflection in there. All I'm going to do is put 15 there. So I'm not going to change the transparency. I don't want this to be see-through, and I want the texture to come through, obviously. So this looks like a nice setup. Now, if it's a blurred reflection, that means, it'll reflect, say, these orange posts up or something, but it'll be a little blurry. You can check that or not check that. That's your call. If you want it to be a perfect mirror, a perfect reflection, you can just uncheck that. Refraction, I only change that when it's like a glass material where you need the light to sort of bounce around in the actual like thickness of the glass. In our case, we have our windows down there, but we're going to just, I'll address refraction when we go to that. Blurred transparency is if you want it to be just what it says, like a sort of frosted look. And then we finally have bump depth, which is sort of a what Podium will do will take the texture you put in here, say for the wood, and it'll give this some sort of like texture, and the intensity of that texture is based off the image you have in there. So it's going to use that image and sort of make it look a little three-dimensional and give it some grit. I'll keep it at 0, but you can play with that. And well, maybe on this one, let's do 3 and see what happens. Actually, I want to do 5, and then we can look at it, and then we can render again without it and see what it looks like. Light emitting material, LEM, stands for exactly that. I can make any material that I have emit light. That's totally fine. In other words, it'll like glow. And I have a material in here that does that, so I'll show you that. Edge smoothing is just so that, you know, your image anti-aliases and sort of smooths out and looks good. Your final render looks good. You have a lot of settings in here. Maybe as you're rendering, you could set that all to default. And then when you do your final rendering, set it to ultra. That might be a good way to do it. So you're not sitting here staring at it render. Here I am choosing to keep it on ultra. So I'm not even doing what I say. So whatever. All right, I'm going to hit apply. So that material's set. So I'm in this view here. So I'm just going to go ahead and render it. And let's see what we get. So here it is rendering, or no, it's not. I just have to hit start. And then I'll hit show. Okay. I can see I definitely got some reflection here because I'm getting something here. Looks like I'm seeing something reflected there, and I'm definitely seeing some orange through here. So that's kind of behaving right, and you can see it all smoothing out now as it renders. Same with this material. I got a little blurred reflection in there. I'm not sure what the intensity is, but it's definitely in there. I'm going to just adjust my view, and then I'm going to set this reflection up a little bit, and I'm going to turn the bump depth down to 0. Let's see what we get. So I want to close this, clean that up, close it. All right, I'm going to zoom in here. Back. I always like to sort of close the material property, open it again to let it reset. So here I am back on wood. Let's do 20. Let's not do blurred, and let's do no bump depth. Hit apply, and let's render that. And I'll go to show. I mean, it's like a perfect mirror, right? This angled surface is getting these doors down here, and it's really seeing all that. So like, look how cool that looks. I mean, if I want a nice glossy surface, I mean, 20 might be a little too intense. I might want to turn that down to like 10, but I like how it looks. It's cool. So we got a nice reflection there. I'll go ahead and stop that. Let's put it at 10. Apply and close. Okay, so that's that material. Now I'm just going to go through a couple of my other materials to show you what I set them at. So for the concrete, I'm going to go to my material properties, go to my eyedropper and select the concrete. And I have it set at 25% reflection, but I have it set to blurred. So I'm going to uncheck blurred. Let's do 15, make it nice shiny concrete, and I'll do no bump depth on that, and I'll hit apply. Okay, I'm going to close that. Go back into my material property, and let's check this sort of green surface here. I got a 10% blurred reflection. I'm going to just leave that in there as is. Hit apply, close. back into my material property, and I'm going to go to my eyedropper and click the glass here. Okay, I have it 85% transparent, 15% reflective, and the refraction I have set to glass, and that will change this number automatically. I didn't check blurred transparency at all, so that's fine. So that's the settings I use for glass, and if this setting works, use it all the time. Like use it in all your renderings. If you like other settings, use it all the time. I think that's just the best way to do it. I'll hit apply. Okay, so the last one I wanted to show you would be this. So here's my concrete, right? So what I wanted to do is sort of give the illusion of sort of a lit staircase. So what I've done, if you zoom in and tilt up, is I put another material under there, and I called that material white glow. I've also put that material in all my lights underneath, and I've also put it in this sort of little light I designed in the concrete. Okay, so a sort of white glow. There we go. So let's go to our material property, and it's already on that because I already selected the material, but otherwise I would just eyedropper it. And what I did was I put the light emitting power to 20. I'll just increase it here to 25. And I didn't check high intensity or hidden. I'm just going to leave it at 25 and hit apply. And now I'm going to go to scene 1. And let's go ahead and render. And let's just see what we get. Okay, so this is a small render. And let's go ahead and show that. Okay, so you're seeing the light around here, seeing the reflection up there. I'm seeing the light here, here in all my lights. At least the light emitting material, not an actual light. I'm also seeing the reflected light of the underside of each of the stairs, and there is a little bit of a gradient of light there, so that is working. Yeah, I might want to crank it when I get to my final render, but that looks good for now. Got a nice reflection on my glass, as well as a nice blurred reflection on this green material. You notice that I don't see the lines in there. Okay, so the lines will come later in post-production. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So in a nutshell, that's materials. Very simple. One last thing I want to show you is that you can always go to Podium browser here. So let's let that open up. Now, Podium browser, of course, is tons of models that you can sort of just bring into your scene or your SketchUp model. This will, of course, increase render time, especially if it's a 3D tree and things like that. But what I can do, which is really nice, is materials. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the materials section and do see all. So here are all these different materials I can choose from. And let's say I want to put this wood in. Okay, so I'm going to this timber floor. This one looks better. Okay, I want to bring that into my project. I'm going to go ahead and click this little like download button. Let's see what it's doing. So it's sort of thinking here. Now look in my model. See, it brings in this cube with the material. Now if I just click it in there, okay, go to my material settings and then click that material. Timber floor, everything in here is already set. Okay, so now this material is in my project, right? So I'm going to close this material. So I can go ahead and delete it, the model piece, but the material is still in my materials folder here. So I can use it on my project wherever I see fit. So I could put it, say, let's put it on this back bench, maybe there too. So maybe it's like a wood bench insert into the concrete. That should be concrete, but we don't see it. That's all right. Let's go back to that scene. So Podium browser, I mean, incredible resource. Let's see what time we have here. I'm gonna bring the time like more like midday. And let's go ahead and render. Very cool. Getting a nice reflection there. And now we got our wood in here, and it's even giving a nice reflection on the wood. So cool, cool resources for you in Podium. But already this is looking more photorealistic. Yeah, the trees look a little designy in the background, but that's kind of okay. I mean, I kind of like the fact that the trees have this graphic quality, but then the building itself has this like reflective material quality. So I think that's where I'll keep it for this lecture, and then we'll move on to lights and image making.